Yeah, so this strike is very significant. Right now, we still don't know which leaders were located at this meeting that was targeted, who was killed, who may not have been killed. But regardless of which leaders were or were not eliminated, this was a massive response by the Israelis to the ongoing hostage talks. Sends a clear message that Hamas leaders abroad are not out of Israel's reach. There's long been an understanding or an assumption that Hamas officials living abroad in Doha were safe, living in the lap of luxury, and this strike really shattered that illusion. Yeah, so the relationship between Israel and Qatar is an interesting one. Going back several years, the Qataris, for many years, were delivering aid to Gaza with the green light from Israel. That said, as they were sending this money to Gaza, they also were harboring Hamas officials and were reportedly sending money directly to Hamas for terrorism purposes, not only humanitarian purposes in the Gaza Strip. So it's a bit of a challenging relationship in that sense. Since the outbreak of the war on October 7th, the Qataris have been intimately involved in hostage talks. They're one of the key mediators alongside the United States and Egypt. And the Qataris have had two successes in brokering ceasefire deals. That said, the war has now gone on for almost 2 years, and dozens of hostages remain in Gaza. So the logic of employing the Qataris, who are not neutral players by any sense of the term, to mediate with Hamas in Gaza, it's a questionable choice. As far as what today's action means for the hostage talks, I think it's pretty unclear right now. We're still waiting on confirmation as to who was killed, what leaders from Hamas remain, if Israel has anyone to negotiate with. But I think the strike happening in and of itself is a sign that talks weren't really going anywhere, and Israel had to do something big to potentially break a logjam. Yeah, so I would be pretty surprised if the Trump administration wasn't at least read into this action shortly before it happened. I have seen reports that the Trump administration was aware. A major reason for my surprise is that our largest airbase in the region is located just outside of Doha. We have a pretty close relationship with the Qataris. So it would be very surprising to me if Israel took this action without warning the United States in a relationship that the U.S. has with the government there, not just the government, but the country at large. We have lots of investments there. They have investments here. There are partnerships at all levels of government in every sector. And so I think this is a delicate dance that the Trump administration, the Qataris, and the Israelis are going to have to proceed with from here on out, given that Qatar has been harboring these terrorist leaders while also pursuing strong relationships with the United States and other countries in the West. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I don't see us any closer to a deal. As I mentioned earlier, most of Hamas's recognizable senior leaders are no longer living. It's unclear who Israel and the United States are negotiating with at this point. Continuing to go down the same road that we've gone down for almost 2 years, that hasn't proved effective in the past, is unlikely to prove effective in the future. And so I really think there needs to be some sort of change in how we're pursuing these hostage negotiations for something to actually happen and materialize. I think there are two big things that we should be watching. First is what Israel may or may not do to Hamas leaders living abroad outside of Qatar. So that means Turkey primarily. I wouldn't be surprised if Israel now puts those leaders on high alert. I could also see a scenario in which Israel goes after Houthi leaders living in Oman. Again, the strike really showed that terrorist leaders that directly threaten Israel are not out of Israel's reach, even if they're far away from Israel's borders. The second thing I think we need to be watching for is a potential reset or reckoning with regard to the U.S.-Qatar relationship. This is something that's been long overdue. I think the Israelis really opened the door for the Trump administration to put Qatar's major non-NATO ally status under scrutiny, re-up long-standing terror finance concerns, potentially crack down on Al Jazeera. There are several things that the U.S. should be doing to hold Qatar accountable for its more adversarial behavior, and the Israelis really set the stage for us to do that.